So when we engage in externalization, that is, attribute the source of reality onto some kind of extrinsic aspect that is perceived to seemingly exist based upon information gathered with sense organs, we are lowering the mind under the matter, which disconnects us from knowing ourselves, thereby deluding us into a false sense of being, hence preventing true self-recognition, thereby surrendering control to illusion. This tendency comes in many, many forms and is expressed in many, many fashions, as we spend the majority of our time constantly perpetuating and feeding into the reinforcement of it without even consciously knowing it. It pervades and encompasses almost the entire school of human thought and is spread across all brands of theology, ideology, philosophy, politics, and science. The specifics of the externalization may vary from position to position among these varying schools of thought, but the core principle is almost always the same. The answer is found outside of yourself. When this principle is the unconscious foundation of your presuppositional premise about the nature of reality, you essentially become a hamster on a wheel, forever running in infinity, getting nowhere fast, until exhaustion and death finally set in. It's quite a fate. But what else could one possibly hope for when one is using the wrong application to address an existential quandary? Like the saying goes, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so goes the approach of the externalization conditioning. Outward references are the paraphernalia of the mind's self-disempowerment. And one of the ultimate granddaddies of this self-imposed servitude is time, and thus by association, history. So let's take a look at these factors. First up, history. We love this one, as it serves as a great facilitator of externalization. The idea that this realm has some kind of actual past related to it. Just the notion of a history disempowers you, because it sets up the premise that some kind of reality had existed independently of you. That there was some kind of significant events or important activities that occurred prior to your existence, hence relegating yourself as a tiny guppy in a vast sea, an insignificant extra in the background of some grand narrative on a grand stage with an ensemble cast of other important fish and mythological sea creatures. This simply can't be, least of all for the simple fact that there isn't any such thing as these assumed divisions. There is only you here. So wherein are these supposedly different times and different people occurring? Every single life that has ever been, or ever will be, has always been you. But yet none of these identities are what you actually are. And it goes even deeper than that. The entire streaming projection of sensory data is one unified efflux of illusion, none of which is the actual reality. The actual reality, that which is constant and never-changing, the source of this outflow of arrangements and appearances, is the only truth. A truth that is free from any classification. And does the implications of this truth seem bleak and demoralizing to you? If so, then you are painting the empty truth with a negative brush, because it's your subjective bias that views it that way. At the core, there are no distinctions. It's non-dual. So this negative outlook only reveals your feelings about the truth of your essence. I'm not the one sugarcoating anything inherently negative as positive. It's a neutrality truth. But it seems you want that sugarcoating on the truth of emptiness. You dig that? You view the truth of essence to be bleak and demoralizing, which goes a long way in showing your propensity for delusion. But that's the nature of the projection game. You make a distinction, and just by doing so, the opposite must also be the case. I'm saying set these dualities aside and return to the truth. And so I'm sorry to have to tell you this. And I know this has the potential to literally shatter souls and cause existential implosion. But there is no such thing as the past. Just technically, that's correct, for the past wouldn't meet the criteria of being a thing proper. So then, if not a thing, then what is it actually? Other than just a nostalgic concept streaming in your consciousness. During nocturnal dreams, we also visit other dream worlds, wherein whole histories exist. It would even provide evidence to the fact if the details were probed deeper. And at daybreak, upon awakening. Wherein is that history? Yeah, it was just imagined. But it had a history. Doesn't that lend very dense credibility to the existence of that dream history? And of course, you know, there is no dream history. At least not now. Maybe at the moment you were existentially present in that dream, the history seemed to exist. But now that you are awake, you know it wasn't anything other than just rippling appearances on the surface of the waters. Same goes with the dense energetic vibrations of the physical dream. The increased mental density of physicality doesn't give illusion any more credibility as having an increased substantiality apart from potentiality. This staunch adherence to upholding some hard-line position in regards to the actuality of the physical is mildly annoying. Eventually, there will be a present moment where the details of the current present moment will be completely gone, without a trace. Eventually, the entire universe will be returned to superposition, and there will be no memory or records of any of it. Wherein is the physical past of this so-called universe at that point? In the same realm as the nocturnal dream world history, the phantom zone. So this is why it isn't beneficial to the evolution of freedom from mind enslavement to indulge in attachments with the concept of the past, whether identifications by way of personal history or that of the so-called world history. We are conditioned to seek attachments with concepts and objects that help to give some kind of imagined legitimacy to the illusory ego. Yes, we gravitate towards forming identifications and associations with projected content by referring to our cultures and our socio-historical narratives. But by doing so, we are tethering the formless mind to dense, restricting matter. This is a debilitating exercise. But what about historical research? Research what? What could you possibly hope to ultimately learn about a phantom world? And if the research deludes you, is this really a worthwhile pursuit by those who claim to want to know the truth? And so, what about time? What time is it? There is no time. There is only now. But what about hitherto? No. All you have is a present moment. And the present moment doesn't have any time associated with it. It's constant. There does seem to be some kind of sensation of duration we call time as a way to reference the concept of this ambiguous process. And there does seem to be an idea of time that is fancied from the point of view of a conscious perceiver. But that's all it is. An illusion of time. That is more of an application used to describe the changes of form and appearances, which probably originally came to pass as a way to describe aging and the cycles of changes in nature. As I often do, we return to the metaphor of water to illustrate the point. When we stand on the beach and observe waves forming, rising, cresting, and crashing on the shore, are the waves just forming younger than the rising waves? Are the waves that are crashing on the shore older than the cresting waves? And if the ocean suddenly came to a calm, what's what? What parts of the water at rest are younger or older than the other parts of the water? Or are these merely just appearances of form that we are trying to organize with mental bookkeeping? And that's the key point. Changes of appearances occur, and we track these changes with our system of measuring the duration. But just like the waves in the ocean, all material phenomena are just movements of energy, which isn't created, isn't destroyed, and doesn't have any substantial distinction of age. So no, there is no time. But I can count to 1. Days go by, clocks click, and calendar pages flip. The sun shines, planets rotate, and seasons change, causing light and darkness, snow and flame. And that's the best you got to justify clinging to the concept of time? Counting to one is just a creature making a noise. Days go by, but what is a day? And isn't this mental concept just based on a supposedly existing medium of temporary relativity? What if you were on a different planet? Would a day on Venus constitute the same type of day? What then becomes of the standard Earth calendar and clock on Venus? And what if you were just trapped on a lost spaceship, adrift in deep space, far away from any known planet? What then becomes of your day, clock, or calendar? Do units of time have any significance in relation to one another if one is making numerous trips between multiple planets? If this supposedly existing property of time is relative, then it means that the present moment of potentiality is the only constant. And these concepts of time are just mental constructs that develop as a result of the mind focusing attention on reflections rather than remaining lucid and clear in the now of awareness. The now of awareness. That's where an existence is existing. Like the flame on the end of a candle. No past or future to the flame beyond thoughts in an observer's head. There's the flame until there is no more flame. Flame or no flame, it's still a configuration of the present condition. Same goes for musical composition. When you are listening to music, you don't consider the past of a song or concern yourself with the future of a song. You are appreciating the song in the now, at the event horizon of sound. This is where the music is taking place. This is the point of engagement. The past is but a concept. Forget about the concept of the past. It doesn't serve you constructively, despite how attracted and comfortable you are with it. But if you don't know your past, you don't know your future. Yeah, so in other words, let the past define your ego by latching on to identifications that will inevitably anchor you down to a solidified position and then call that knowing a future. No thanks. Yeah, but those that don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. It doesn't matter. People don't gain wisdom from reading about other people's experiences. They gain wisdom by having their own. And certain mistakes must be learned over and over again by each person to varying degrees in different scales. And even with that, the current consciousness is shaped by experiences that appear in the now and fade away. It's not a matter of referencing the past. You are referencing a current condition. Experience stretches the dimensions of consciousness, but there's only ever a now, a present moment, the now of awareness.